My parents were never rich. My dad was earning 20 grand a year. You know what I mean? My mum didn't work most of my childhood. They owned property. You know, people used to own property. Ordinary people used to own property. And then my generation, they will never be able to afford to own property. So what you see there is the loss of wealth holding of what Americans would call the middle class, what we would call the working class. Then I got called into a meeting in 2011 by one of Citibank's really senior economists. And this is early 2011. And he went through the government financial positions of a lot of the world's major governments. So you probably remember there was a big financial crisis later in 2011 centered on the governments of Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece, Ireland. And he was saying, look, these governments, they're spending more than their income. They're running big deficits. They're being forced to dissave their assets. They're going into debt. And it wasn't just those like Southern European economies. It was also the UK, the US, Japan. Their situation was quite similar. And he predicted there was going to be a crisis, and he was correct that there was. But I came out of that meeting, and what really struck me about that meeting and that description was that the description there of Western governments' financial positions was really, really similar to the financial positions of my friends and their families, spending more than their income, dissaving their assets, going further and further into debt. And, you know, I was a trader and, you know, I wasn't taking a moralistic position, right? I wanted to understand it. What really struck me about that was that it's impossible, in the sense that it is impossible both for all of your families to lose their assets and go into debt and your governments to lose their assets and go into debt. You can't have both the private sector and the public sector losing their assets and going into debt. The debt has to be to somebody. Somebody has to own the assets. And this was like rolling around my head, like, what is happening here? And I was thinking about this, sitting on my desk in Canary Wharf on a trading floor, surrounded by millionaires, having been paid £500,000 a year, both of the previous 2 years in my early 20s. And I suddenly realized, it's us. It's us. We are the guys who are taking the wealth that used to be owned by the middle class, by the working class. We are the guys who are bankrupting Western governments. We are the other side of the trade. We are the other side of the coin. And once I realized that, and first I would like to add to that, once you work in a place like Citibank or you study at a place like LSE, you realize that people like me then, traders at investment banks, we're not the richest guys. You realize, damn, like if we're building up, what are the really rich guys doing? What are the people with hundreds of millions and billions doing? And you suddenly start to realize this gets worse. Because if the Western middle class, the Western working class and Western governments cannot run a balanced budget when they own assets, then they definitely